everybody, this is Mackenzie with the Denver Vintage Society. We are doing something a little bit different today. You're actually joining me in my sewing studio, and we're going to talk about my latest project. So like many of you, shoes are a topic that's near and dear to my heart. Whenever possible, I like to buy vintage shoes. However, as you go further and further back in history, finding vintage shoes that are in good condition and not super delicate can be very difficult. Now, I know that our ancestors had the ethic of use it up and make it do. However, I, for one, feel terribly when I ruin a pair of vintage shoes or just wear them out. So, if possible, I often will buy reproduction shoes. One of the great things about recreating historical dress is that we have so many different eras that we can pull from, and our vintage style can change and shift accordingly. Right now, I'm going through what I would describe as an Edwardian school teacher who's only working as a school teacher to cover up for the fact that she's actually a witch phase. And as such, I've been lusting after these American Duchess shoes, the Londoner. If you're not familiar with American Duchess shoes, they do reproduction shoes from all different eras, but the Londoner itself is a high-heeled Oxford shoe. So the Londoner is a gorgeous shoe. However, as of right now, it's just slightly out of my budget. Accordingly, I went onto Amazon and bought a $20 pair of high-heeled Oxford shoes. When they actually arrived, they were a little cheap looking. They are a 100% vinyl shoe, and they looked like a 100% vinyl shoe. Using just a little bit of shoe cream and some elbow grease, I was able to turn them into a shoe that looks like a worn leather shoe. So these aren't exact dupes for the Londoner, but I'm really happy with the result, and I can't wait to wear them around. Come with me on my journey and see how I did it. So here you can actually see the shoe that I bought. As I mentioned, they were about $20 on Amazon. If you're interested, I can link them in the comments down below. I wasn't super happy with the look of the vinyl or the stitching itself. So the first thing that I did was to remove the laces. I might actually come along later and re-dye those laces a darker color, but I wanted to see how they looked after just a little bit of wear and tear. The first thing that I did was roll back the side so I could do a test swatch inside the tongue, just in case I wasn't super happy with the results. I decided to use a shoe cream. I'm using the Tarago Brown. I think that the shoe cream worked a little bit better than the shoe polish, as it seemed to dye the surface a little bit more. The shoe polish actually needed to absorb in, which the vinyl didn't do a good job of. Alternately, if you want a little bit different look and something that looks more like the Londoner, you can use the Kiwi Cordovan. It has more of a red color to it. As far as other materials go, I used this Kiwi shoe brush. I also used this rag. Pretty simple as far as materials go. Here's the test swatch going onto the tongue of the shoe. I put it on a little bit thickly because I wanted to see how much it would actually dye the shoe. I ended up not getting it super evenly, but I wasn't too worried about that. Finally, I ended up using some hair clips in order to hold the side of the shoe down while it dried. Later, I came along with a rag and just kind of moved it around to see how permanent it was and how I liked the color. Obviously, I liked it, so I went ahead and started on the whole shoe. To put it on, I just used a series of back and forth motions along with some circular motions in areas that needed a little bit more coverage. I paid particular attention to the stitching, the eyelet holes, and to the edges around the bottom. Here I am back to my handy dandy hair clips to hold the sides of the shoe out of the way. That just gave me access so that I was able to finish up dyeing the tongue without actually dyeing the interior of the shoe. When everything was all done, it was time to let the shoe dry. Here I am just giving it a once over to make sure I didn't miss any major spots, coming back along with the rag just to kind of clean up any spots that I thought looked patchy. I wasn't too worried about an even application since this is supposed to look like a worn shoe. Finally, I used the shoe brush to give it a nice polish and to remove any stickiness that the shoe cream might have left behind. So here's the dyed shoe and the undyed shoe side by side. You can see that the dyed shoe is substantially darker. I also think it looks a lot more like an authentic leather shoe. All that's left is to relace the shoe. I recommend keeping the first shoe still laced so that you can set them side by side and copy the lacing pattern on the original shoe. All that's left to do now is finish the second shoe. And finally, here are the finished shoes. I came along and relaced them so that the inside bar was opposite each other. It's these little details that make me super happy with the finished product.